There it is.
Oh, error. Let me try again.
No, we're live.
Are we? We are live. Boom. There
Yep.
we go. Speaking of error, I don't know. I had to Google if The Mandalorian was done. I didn't know after
Oh,
watching
it is.
the finale if the season was done or the series was done.
I don't know. I know the season's done, man, but
They say so. John Favreau has been quoted, I think, in the New York Post saying he already has the script for The Mandalorian season 4 written. So
okay.
I'm
Oh,
like,
good.
all right, that's a good sign because we
Good.
definitely I need Mandalorian in my life, man. When
Yeah.
football's
Yeah,
not
for
on,
sure.
I need something, and Mandalorian is just supreme.
Yep. I love it.
Oh,
And you watched the last one, right?
I did. I did.
Okay.
I absolutely did. That's right, Broncos Country. It's a Wednesday night. We're talking Star Wars. We're talking The Mandalorian. We're talking the NFL draft. The wait is officially over. This is going to be the last podcast before NFL draft 2023 coverage kicks off tomorrow, round one. Man, Thomas, it's finally here. It takes us a long time to get here, right? We
Yeah.
end the season, we start looking at picks. George Payton says, F them picks, gets us a new head coach, my guy, Sean Payton. Radio silence over there. We're trying to figure out which direction the Broncos are going to leap in the NFL draft, which starts tomorrow night. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. It's interesting. It's really the first night is super exciting, right? Round one. It's always exciting. But, in this instance, I don't have to stay up late, So I got to work the next day, and so it's not too bad.
I think you're representing some of Broncos country who's saying, man, is this Groundhog's Day all over again? I mean, you're telling us, Luke, you got to be excited and the Broncos don't pick till round 3, number 67. Yeah, be excited because you don't know what's going to happen. George Payton,
It's true.
somewhat might call him, level-headed, tempered, not Sean Payton. Sean Payton is an impulsive man who knows what he wants, and when he wants to go get it, he's going to get it. So
Yep.
stay tuned. I don't think that the Broncos would trade into the first round. I think trading into the second round is a distinct possibility, something we'll get into tonight. But before we go any further, one of our own, DVA. Sup, Broncos Country? Make sure you hit that like button on the way in, share on all platforms, and subscribe if you haven't already. I was talking to my guy Dylan earlier today on Twitter because PFF put a tweet out there. I don't know if you saw this. I don't know if Broncos Country saw this. And it was talking about the number of mock drafts per fan base.
Yes.
Broncos were second to last. And I'm sitting here like, okay, I'm the guy that says, don't send me your mock draft because I'm tired of going over them. They're all going to be busted after the first pick anyway. And PFF is going to double down and be like, yeah, Broncos Country is not really using our mock draft. I took exception to that. And our guy Dylan was like, hang on, Luke, maybe that's just for their platform, because if you don't have a PFF subscription, you can't go past round 2 or 3 or something like that. I don't know. It pissed me off.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done many mock drafts this year, and I think there's not as much excitement because there's no first or second rounder. But like you said, Sean Payton has a history of trading up, going after the guy he wants. We have the Broncos, not we. The Broncos have extra picks next year, so maybe future capital, but they don't have a second, so it's going to be pretty tough to get up into the very first day of the draft. It's going to be pretty tough.
We're going to get into that, Broncos Country. We're going to let you know what Denver has for this year's picks. We're going to let you know what they have for next year's picks. Stay tuned. Dominique, friend of the show, weighing in, saying, what up to DVA? Hey, Broncos family, the draft feels seconds away, but wake me up when Denver finally reaches the podium. Ha, MHH for life. Go Broncos. Thomas, we've been doing the draft coverage for years, draft coverage that will continue starting tomorrow here on MHH. Got a whole lot of exciting stuff. Stay tuned, Broncos Country. No subscriptions, nothing like that. We don't need any of your payment information, credit cards. We don't need none of that. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com, on Twitter at milehighhuddle. Yours truly will be writing, as usual, 4th year in a row, gut reactions to every pick, what it means to the Denver Broncos, and who are these players. I'm really looking forward to that. Thomas, you're going to be on air multiple days, Friday and Saturday. You and Ron are going to be hosting your show on Saturday night, Orange and Blue View. Man, it's going to be a lot of fun.
It'll be a nice wrap up, right? After everybody, the excitement's all done. Come join Orange and Blue View on Saturday night. We'll get our thoughts out there. We'll talk about all the players drafted and, sound off in the live chat, just like you always do. It's going to be a blast.
It's going to be a blast. And blasting us off here on MHI tonight, Sue Gibson with a very generous $9.99 super. Thank you so much, Sue. I know you're ready for the draft. Good evening, gentlemen. Excited for the draft. What do you guys think of drafting JMS as our center? And of course, Sue is talking about John Michael Schmitz out of Minnesota. He's an absolute dog. He's the number 1 rated center in this draft by so many experts. I don't consider myself an expert, but I have him rated number 1 on my center board as well. I like the centers a lot, Sue. It's a position of need for the Denver Broncos, and they need to figure it out. We've talked a lot about Ohio State center Luke Weipler, Joe Tippmann, John Michael Schmitz. I mean, these guys are some dogs that the Broncos could either get in striking distance in the second, or hopefully one of them falls to them in the third.
Yeah, that's the problem with Schmitz there. I just don't think he's going to be around, and I don't. Yeah, thank you, Sue. Sorry, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate it. I just don't think he's going to be around, and they would have to move up. He might be gone in the late first round. That's a big move that they'd have to make.
I know, he's good, man. He's so good in center. We've talked about it. You've written about it at milehighhuddle.com. It is hard right now. There is a drought of offensive guards, especially offensive centers. It's hard to find them. I mean, Scott's on the road. I'm on the road. We're all doing the best we can with draft coverage here, and you think you get a decent prospect. A guy like, Lloyd Cushenberry. And it's not quite gelling or progressing as it should. The Broncos could look to fill that need and fill it early.
Absolutely. And, if they stay put, there is a chance. And I don't know. It depends on how the first part of the draft kind of rolls out. But Tippmann could be there, at least within striking distance of not mortgaging everything to go get him. So, I mean, I like Tippmann.
Why would Tippmann be there?
I don't know. I'm just making a guess based on, all these kind of big boards and how it's unfolding. But it could be that, the centers don't get taken until later. So it kind of pushes them down the draft. It's possible. It depends on who the run is, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say every year there's a run on quarterbacks, right?
Yep.
People overreach on all kinds of players, all kinds of positions. But when you're hearing rumblings, because I don't know if you saw the video. Did you see the Reddit video of Will Levis eating the banana, like with the peel on it? I was like, huh? I don't quite get that one. But you're seeing, and I get it, smoke and mirrors and all kinds of stuff before the draft. There's always a run on quarterbacks, Thomas. And that's kind of, I think, what you're hinting at. If there's a run at a certain position or just groups of positions, if you will, that's going to cause some guys to naturally slip.
And the other thing too about if there's a run on a particular position, you may see people picking up the phone to call the Broncos, and that's wide receiver. If the first two, like the top dogs, wide receivers get taken really early, like the top 15, I bet you teams are going to be calling the Broncos about Jerry Jeudy for the first round, because they're going to get scared that there's not going to be a wide receiver available late in the first round. So they may start calling. Same thing could happen later, early in the second round as well. They're still on the table. Those trade rumors are still out there. And I've been saying this for a couple of weeks. If a couple of the receivers get taken early, there's going to be some people picking up the phone, maybe offering what the Broncos wanted for either of those players to begin with. Michael Ronquillo, thank you for being in the house tonight. The legend saying good evening, Thomas Hall and Luke on Mile High Insiders. Go Broncos and buck 'em. And thank you for the support. As always, we can't say how much we appreciate really say how much we really appreciate all you've done for Mile High Huddle, Michael. Thank you so much.
Michael, you are a star, and thank you for all the stars, all the support, all the kind words, all the love. You're as much a part of this as anyone, including us, and we thank you. We salute you here on MHI. He is Thomas Hall. I am Luke Patterson. This is the Mile High Insiders every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Mountain, and we're talking NFL Draft, which starts tomorrow. It's going to be an absolute ball. We can't wait. Stay tuned here on the Mile High Huddle for your best draft coverage. We're talking about what the Broncos could potentially do, what positions they could be looking at. Let's also talk. So I want to hear favorite draft day memories, favorite draft day picks. Let's get into some of those as well. Thomas and I were talking about them, kind of previewing them a little bit without the names. Oh, I hated this draft. Oh, I couldn't stand this guy. We're going to get into those as well. Be sure to let us know in the live comment section. One thing I just take myself back to with the draft, and it feels like forever ago, but I could not stand the Tim Tebow pick at number 25, man. That was absolutely heartbreaking for me. Josh McDaniels already creating a mess, and then he goes out there, drafts Tim Tebow. Demaryius Thomas, God rest his soul, was in that same draft. So a lot of making up to do there for DT on Tim Tebow's behalf. But man, what'd you think when Tebow got drafted to the Denver Broncos?
Yeah, I didn't care for it. I didn't think he was well-rounded enough to be that high of a pick, and he ended up not being, right. It was fun. Don't get me wrong, that year where he, the defense kept him in it and he pulled out some wins at the end was a lot of fun. It was not the long-term answer. He was a big-time reach in that part of the draft. And with all the turmoil that was going on, I mean, Josh McDaniels had to, he had to win in order to save his job, and to take Tim Tebow, who was a project, obviously was a dumb decision. But the draft I hated the most, the entire draft almost, was in 2001 with Ray Rhodes at the defensive coordinator talking Shanahan into going in and getting Willie Middlebrooks in the first round. Terrible pick. Then they got Paul Toviesi in the second round, who had a bad knee, never played a down, couldn't even really make it through camp. Reggie Hayward was an okay third rounder, but
he's all right.
When he finally started to be okay as a pass rusher, they let him go in free agency. They drafted a punter to replace Ruin, who couldn't beat him out. So he went on to have a pretty long career, Nick Harris. But it was just a terrible draft altogether. The only really good selection was Ben Hamilton in that draft. The rest I couldn't stand, and I couldn't stand that they reached for Willie Middlebrooks, and I couldn't believe it.
Ben Hamilton, man, I haven't heard that name in a long time. Right guard, or was it left?
I think he could play either, but I think he was mainly left guard, because I think Cooper was the right guard for a while.
That's
if I remember
right.
correctly.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, man, that's a name. I feel like Obi-Wan right now. That's a name I haven't heard in a very long time. A guy we hear from all the time, one of our friends, our very own GLP, Gary Leeds Bomber, 1999 generous super chat. Thank you so much, sir. Happy NFL draft to our guy Gary, saying, hey guys, I love that you're mixing up the personalities. Go Broncos. That's right. Here on MHH, we for our draft coverage, man, it's so busy all the time, whether that's mixing it up with draft coverage shows, different guys coming in and out. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of different articles on milehighhuddle.com. Stay tuned, Gary. A lot of fun is on the way.
Yep. Thank you very much, Gary. Appreciate it. We always have a different perspective, and that's what makes it so much fun. And thank you for pointing it out. If we are all the same, we act like robots. So thank you Gary for that. Appreciate it. Clayton Huron coming in with Facebook stars, showing us some love. Thank you so much, Clayton, and thank you for being here. It's a fun night. I'm excited. It's NFL Draft Eve, so thank you. He says, evening, guys. Been a while. Back to mowing grass and cleanups and mulching. Smash that like button and share, guys.
Yeah,
thank you. Thanks, Clayton.
I'm a lawn guy. I'm a lawn guy, just like you, Clayton, so I totally appreciate it. Here in the Mile High City, man, we've been getting snow. It's been the wet snow that's gone by midday. So I aerated, fertilized, seeded in time. Things are looking beautiful on the lawn, Clayton. I'm sure yours is as well. Thank you so much for tuning in to MHI, where you can find Thomas and I every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Mountain. Michaela Israel, friend of the show. This is Cooper saying, what up? I'm finishing homework. Finish that homework, dude. Make sure you can grow up to be a smart genius, billionaire genius, maybe new owner of the Denver Broncos one day, right? I mean, these kids, they say they're the future. Well, at some point, these owners started as kids, right? Start them right, Michaela. Get Cooper on that Broncos ownership train, and we'll all be doing all right. No, we're talking NFL draft. Man, I hear you, Broncos Country. Broncos Country is excited. Don't get me wrong, but they're also like, look, Thursday night, round one. Friday night, round two. Yeah, Saturday. I'll tune in on Saturday and see what the Broncos are doing. Obviously, the Denver Broncos pick on Saturday, round 3, number 67, number 68. As it's currently slated, the Denver Broncos have 5 picks. That's number 67, number 68, number 108 in the 4th round, and number 195 via the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 5th round. I say that's how it's currently slated because we don't know what's going to happen. We talked last week, is George Paton going to move up, move down with Sean Payton, depending on who's truly running that show? It's going to be very revealing. And I think we both kind of agreed on this. Who's picking who when those names and that card comes in here on Saturday or even Friday?
And don't tune out on Thursday night. Like I said earlier, if there's a quick run on wide receivers early, you may see the phone being picked up and Broncos number called for one of those wide receivers. If it's Jerry Jeudy, I think they want a first rounder, so they may get into the back end of the first round and take a pick. If it's Cortland Sutton, it's probably a day 2 pick. But don't tune out because I think there's a couple receivers that are might go in the top 15. If they do, they're going to be the other teams are going to start to get nervous down towards the end of the first round. Wow. Phil McLaughlin,
man,
how you doing?
That's crazy. I almost wanted to, something I don't when you're like Broncos Country, stay tuned in the first round. You're absolutely right. I mean, we could be kind of sleeping on the job and then all of a sudden, bam, the Denver Broncos have traded with the Philadelphia Eagles into pick number 30. I mean, that's totally possible. You're seeing all these different mocks. I mean, I've seen some where Zay Flowers is down that low. And if that's the case, maybe people aren't calling on wide receivers. Maybe it's another position. I mean, we just don't know. But you're telling me there's a chance, right? Like Dumb and Dumber. So you're telling me there's a chance with Sean Payton. There is always a chance to make a huge, huge splash.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, thanks, Phil, for coming in. Good to see you. Good evening, Thomas, Luke, and Deacon Scott. What is the statement I read that we are looking at Stetson Bennett in the 3rd? I don't like this idea. Thoughts? Buckham, go Broncos. Stetson Bennett. I don't know, man. I don't know about that one. That's a luxury pick for me to take a quarterback in the 3rd round when there's other needs that the Broncos have. I'm a fan of taking a quarterback later, typically, but you only have 5 picks. It's kind of one of those things that I don't know, it would be like taking a punter, right? To me, I don't know. I don't, maybe there's some rumor to it.
Shots fired. It's like taking a punter. Damn. I mean, I was getting ready to rail on Stetson Bennett. I don't think I could go any lower than it's like taking a punter. I mean, I think Pat McAfee would probably take exception to that, but that was great, Tom. I need that shirt. It's like taking a punter.
Well, I mean, how old is Stetson Bennett? He's like
50. He's like 100 and he's still he's making these poor choices and he's out there. I mean, he's gonna get a shot.
Sure. But the problem
it's not gonna be by the Broncos.
I do a little bit of analytics, obviously, and I went and I was actually looking at Hendon Hooker, not Stetson Bennett, right?
Yeah, all right.
The cutoff is 24. There's really very few that pan out 25 and above players that come into the NFL that actually become an impact player, right? You can say that there was an offensive tackle, Vollmer. He was kind of there. Technically speaking, Garrett Bowles was not 25 when he was drafted. He was actually 24 and turned 25
he was
later.
80 as
but
well.
You could throw him into the mix. There's only a couple that really, it's a small percentage that do it. So that makes me nervous, right? And when is he going to start playing? When he's like 30? I don't know. It's just
they say 30 is the new 20. They maybe being some of these older cats in the draft. You make a good point though. I mean, age it's a part of the deal, right? It's a part of the human being that matters. Experience matters way more in context and things of that nature. Sue coming back in here asking a really good question I wanted to get to. Anyone else think that George Payton will be gone after the draft?
Whoa. I doubt it. I don't see why they would. But I mean, you never know. Yeah, anything's possible.
Here's why they would. I'll play devil's advocate.
Okay,
here's why they would. It was a colossal failure in the NFL draft. George bullied his way into some trades or was too gun shy or I don't know. I mean, it'd be too early to tell, at the end of the NFL draft. Thanks, George. You really screwed that up. Here are your walking papers. But we have seen Greg Penner kind of publicly career neuter George Payton, if you will, as the GM of the Denver Broncos at the end of last season. He made it extremely clear that the head coaching search would be run and headed up by him. George would have minor input, and I found that to be extremely revealing. Now, when it comes to the NFL draft, this is George's baby. I like George Payton, the scout. George Payton, the GM. The card is still out. I'm not quite sure on the GM, but I think it would be very backhanded. I think it would be very distasteful of the Broncos to get rid of George after this draft when Sean Payton came in and said George was a part of coming to Denver.
Well, the way I look at it too, it's not just his draft prowess that we can talk about. He was the one that was out there negotiating the Sean Payton deal, right? So it's not like they were trying to take all his responsibility away. He was out there wheeling and dealing. He knows the ins and outs. The ownership is still trying to get their feet under him to let him go without someone in as a replacement. Kind of like when Elway was brought in, the writing was on the wall that Xanders is going to be gone, right? It was pretty obvious. But there's no real obvious solution after it, unless they think the ownership is going to step in and be the GMs and, act like Jerry Jones or something like that, which is a terrible idea.
Unlikely.
I don't know. I just don't see it happening. I mean, if he messes up something else this year, then yeah, I could see him being gone. But there was a lot of turmoil leading up to, that part of the draft, or this part of the season. The ownership wasn't quite settled yet. They were just getting in. So, it was Payton. George Payton was kind of running the show. And now they've got checks and balances. Now they got other people that can weigh in. And I think that's going to make Payton better. It's going to make George Payton better. So to have them just totally wash their hands of him right now, it would be a big surprise to me if they did.
Colby Collier coming in with some support. Thank you so much, Colby. We really appreciate you joining MHI, saying, good evening, guys. I don't think we're picking in the first round, just hoping for a couple of impact players. And that's a very logical, sensible philosophy when you're a member of Broncos Country and you're like, a trade to the first, man, we're already giving up a lot just to have our head coach here. We gave up a lot to get Russell Wilson. You're paying him a king's ransom each man. And I think that it might be best to get as much value as you can, still with premium picks. Premium picks round 1 through 3, those are your premium picks, and the Broncos have 2 in the third round. That's not ideal, but that doesn't mean you can't find players. I really like Colby's thinking on this one, because that's a huge possibility as well. As exciting as it is to think about the Broncos potentially trading back up into the second, hell, even the first, like you said, it's a possibility with Sean Payton in this building. With George, I don't think so. If it was just George, the guy would probably try to trade those third round picks back. Yep. But with Sean is bold. Sean knows what he wants, and Sean is in charge. The guy with the biggest contract is in charge. Bottom line, I mean, money runs the world. Money is power. That's the fact, Jack. And if you don't like that, stay out of the NFL draft. Colby, I love it, man. I think there's going to be some drama, though. There always is, at least for multiple teams. Maybe the Denver Broncos are part of that drama in a good, exciting way.
Well, think about this. If you want impact players, you got 2 picks in the third round. Your probability of getting one is just over 12% for 2 picks in the third round. And you trade up to the second round, it's you get 1 pick in the bottom half of the second round, it's even worse. So it is I'm not going to say it's all luck, because there are a ton of work that goes. I mean, they poke and prod, they test, they interview, they watch tons of film. These are the experts of the experts, and they still have a hard time getting it right. So, but they need a little bit of luck involved. So if they're going to stand pat, they need a little bit of luck involved so one of those third round picks turns into an impact player. And when I say impact player, I'm talking about somebody who's like an all pro, multiple Pro Bowl player, somebody who, you can't just say, oh yeah, he makes an impact play once in a while. No, like a real impact player. That's what I'm talking about. And it can happen, but the chances of getting 2 with 2 third round picks is next to none.
And to further that point, I wrote down some of my favorite draft picks of all time before
Yeah.
we went live. And I'm looking at this list, Thomas. There's only like 2 guys out of like 20 that I have on here, and they're third rounders. You had safety slash cornerback Bill Thompson, drafted in the third round, pick
Third
number
rounder.
61. And then speaking of special teams, you had Jason Elam as the Broncos kicker, right? Drafted in the third round, number 70. A lot of these guys, I'm seeing a lot of ones in here, seeing a few fours. I mean, it's pretty thin, like you said. I mean, that's just kind of adding to that statistic, and that's in a different era, 2 different eras of playing football. So it is really it gives me goosebumps, those kind of things, because it's a lot of times I think it can be really regurgitated, these sort of things of history doesn't repeat itself, or history does repeat itself, and it's just something we say on these shows. No, when you start to look at your team and where they have had success, it's been a ton of first rounders for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, those are great picks, man. Another third rounder that I always threw out there because I loved him when I was young watching him, Michael Brooks. He wasn't here very long.
Ooh.
Tackling machine, third round
Throwback.
pick. Wonderful. But I will say this, every time someone throws out a name like my guy here, Tom Nalen, 7th rounder, panning out, right? There's a mountain of 7th rounders that didn't, right? That they forget about. People forget about. We remember the great ones. We remember the ones that did pan out, but there's a huge amount of them that don't. And obviously, Tom Nalen's one of my favorite picks of all time. I didn't know it at the time. I just thought it was another 7th rounder that the Broncos grabbed, But it turned out
Tommy
to be
Nalen,
hopefully a Hall
dog.
of Famer. Yeah,
number 218 overall, as you mentioned. And go ahead and plug the Tom Nalen cause here on MHI. I mean, Tom Nalen, one of my favorite picks. Also, he changed the position forever. I mean, he made a quantum leap in the game. He's the reason you don't see these slobs out there anymore. He's the reason you see guys that are so damn smart. He's the reason that the little guy gets a chance, so to speak.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's why I made this shirt, right? This is my push to get Tom Nalen in the Hall of Fame, because he should be in the Hall of Fame for 2 simple reasons. One, he was one of only 2 players, first one to do it, 10 1,000-yard running backs. He was the center when that happened, and 1 2,000-yard running back. The other one to do it's in the Hall of Fame, and he did it after. Didn't get his love for that. Plus, he changed the game, like you said, zone blocking scheme. He was you could say it's Alex Gibbs, you can say it's Shanahan, you can say it's the alt line altogether. But if you watch what happened, Alex Gibbs left, Tom Nalen was still there doing it with no names. Someone you hadn't heard in a long time, Ben Hamilton. These players that
George Foster. I mean,
yes,
these
that
guys...
you don't remember. He was the center of it all, doing it right. His career was remarkable. That's what gets you in the Hall of Fame. If you're not an obvious pick, right? If you're not like Lawrence Taylor or John Elway, where it's obvious he's going in the Hall of Fame. If you're someone who you have to think about it for a while, you have to think, was that player, did he have a remarkable career? And Tom Nalen did in spades, right? Plus, he's probably the most technically sound center of all time. I mean, playing at his weight, they say he's 286. I think he was, you could look at him sometimes playing. He might have been 275 maybe.
Yeah.
And, having his way with Gilbert Brown in the Super Bowl. So definitely a Hall of Famer. But I have to go back to probably the biggest steal of all time, right? A draft for the Broncos. Carl Mecklenburg, 12th rounder.
I like it.
12th rounder. It ends up, he might go in the Hall of Fame as a senior candidate. So those are 2 of my biggest steals right there, along with Shannon Sharp, of course, and TD. But people don't talk about Tom Nalen and Carl Mecklenburg, 12th rounder, man.
Yeah, let's not forget, while we're at it, man, let's not forget the GOAT, Randy Gradishar. I mean, I know we're a first rounder, pick number 14 overall, but what the Pro Football Hall of Fame has done to that man is a crime. And anytime I can throw shade at them, I will. It's a disgrace that you don't have a man like Randy. You talk about changing the game. I mean, because the statistic was not invented while he was out there wrecking it is the reason that he is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's sickening, but someone here who's going to make me feel better, who's going to make the show feel better. We're going to get back to these positive vibes instead of being so pissed off about Tom Nalen and Randy Gradishar not being in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Michaela Israel coming in here with a very generous $5 super, saying, you guys rock. I've been looking forward to the pod all day. We thank you so much, Michaela, a very good, close friend of the show. I was excited about this pod all day too. I'm so excited about the draft. I mean, football is back.
Yes. I'm excited. I'm just going to do one more draft. Probably the best, what I think the best draft, maybe one of the best drafts of all time for the Broncos. 1975, Louis Wright, first rounder, Rick Upchurch, fourth rounder, probably arguably the greatest kick returner of all time, returner of all time until Devin Hester came along. You got Reuben Carter and Steve Foley, who doesn't get recognized for how good he was during that, that 77 Super Bowl team. So definitely.
Carl Mecklenburg, of course, getting a ton of love here on MHI, as he should. Shout out to Carl Mecklenburg, 12th round, like we talked about, number 310. My mom's favorite player, too. She only owns one jersey, and it's Carl Mecklenburg. Vanilla Gorilla is an absolute dog. Speaking of dogs, Phil McLaughlin coming in with so much more support. Thank you, Phil. Phil, another one of those dogs, excited for the NFL draft, and he's taking what we're saying seriously. He knows it to be true. That's why I say Broncos Country is the most educated fan base in all of the NFL. Do you guys think center Joe Tippmann will be available at 67? Man, that is tough, right? We're talking about what if there's a run. I can tell you the secret's out on Joe Tippmann. He's a dog. I mean, he's right behind John Michael Schmitz. He is above Luke Weipler. I've changed my opinion on that over the past few weeks. It's going to be tough. It's going to be real tough if he falls all the way into the third round, number 67. If he falls into the third, I could see him getting picked before the Broncos even have the chance to pull the trigger by a team like Chicago at 64, Houston at 65, Arizona, hell, all three of those teams. And then the Denver Broncos need a center and then some.
Yeah, it's an outside chance that he falls. The draft has to fall perfect for the Broncos to be there to be able to take him. It's kind of wishful thinking. I did my analytics mock draft. I was using a mock draft simulator, and he fell to the Broncos at 67. And you don't need analytics to understand whether you take him at 67 or not, really. So you do it all day long. Well, it could happen. I don't know. I mean, I think the Broncos might have to trade up to the bottom of the second to get him. Possibly.
Boom. That was going to be my next question. Would you trade up for a guy like Joe Tippmann? Let's say the second round is in full effect, and Joe Tippmann is sitting there at the Jacksonville Jaguars, number 56 in the second round. I mean, I think that's a chance where the Denver Broncos could get a decent trade package together to try to send to Jacksonville. And maybe you don't even need a Cortland Sutton because the picks are a lot closer, end of the second, early third. Maybe you trade a Denver third and a New Orleans third and try to get that deal done. Maybe you get an Albert O in there. It's a little too rich for me to give a wide receiver away like Cortland Sutton for Joe Tippmann, even though I love the man. But I think it'd be more realistic, and I'd be willing to trade and look at those scenarios, even if it was for Cortland Sutton. What say you?
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't trade 2/3 to get up in the bottom of the second round, unless it's an impact player that happened to fall. I mean, a center, the Broncos need one, but to trade up, that kind of value to get up to get a center, kind of, I don't know. But if you could get a decent package to trade up, maybe. But I would maybe think about a future pick, right? 2024 pick where I think they have 9 picks next year already in the hopper. Maybe you package 6. One of those up.
6, I think.
I think they've got more. I think they got a few from past trades, but I'm not sure. I'm not 100%. I think they've got 2 in the third and 2 in the fourth and 2 in the fifth, I think. So I think that puts them at 9. But
okay, I had them with a Denver first, a Denver third, a Saints third, Miami 4th, Denver 5th, Rams 7th, but maybe that's not including supplemental picks the Broncos didn't get any supplemental.
Yeah, they didn't get any. No. Yeah.
That sucks. And San Francisco got them all.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if they're going to take the call for Sutton and get a second rounder, they've been talking about moving him. It's still a big risk. But like I said, if you're going to move up to get a player, is center the position that you package picks up to go get when there's a history of finding later round interior offensive linemen who can be serviceable. Obviously, they have not made any moves. They think they're going to be able to resurrect Cushenberry. I've said that for weeks. I said, I wrote an article right after the first wave of free agency, I said they think they're going to be able to resurrect his career and make him a solid player. So I don't know. I wouldn't want to trade up. It would be tough for me to say, yeah, 2 third rounders. I wouldn't do it. You got more of a probability to hit on a player, impact player in 2 third rounders than you do moving up into the back half of the second round with 1 pick.
But when you know, when you're in love, you're in love. And I hope
It's
to
true.
God they find an upgrade. And I hope someone's in love with a center, a premium round center at least. My dumb movie's coming in here. I wanted to grab this saying Jerry Jeudy has been a big letdown, a waste of a first round pick. And I feel like this is an opinion that isn't shared by a lot of Broncos country, but I wanted to give it a shout out because I think that there's some legs to stand on if you're my dumb movies. I think that it's been extremely underwhelming what Jerry Jeudy has done in his career as a Denver Bronco in a dependent position. However, when you do look at some of his draft class mates and see that these guys have become the face of the league, i.e. Justin Jefferson, you even look at a guy like CeeDee Lamb, who I was very high on as well. I still graded Jerry Jeudy out as the best wideout pre-draft. And I got egg on my face. And that's why some members of Broncos country are saying, I'm okay with people trying to get a Jerry Jeudy away from us and get a trade package, some compensation, maybe get into the second, maybe you get into the first. I mean, you talked about it. If some teams' wide receivers are gone early, maybe that's when you start calling some of these wide receiver heavy teams where some of this smoke, at least the rumor smoke, has been.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say he's a huge letdown. I don't think he's lived up to his draft status at this point, but at the latter half of the, last year he seemed to be getting into his groove. Maybe it's a kind of a harbinger to what we're going to see from Jeudy in 2023. I think a better offense will help him. I think he's a little bit disgruntled at times, which kind of bothers me, but there's so much uncertainty with the wide receiver group right now that it's hard to let go of a Jerry Jeudy unless it's a nice package, right? To take him, because you got Timmy Patrick. I love the guy. Awesome player.
Dog.
But he's come back from injury. Cortland Sutton has not been himself. You got KJ Hamler can't stay healthy. So you've got to understand that there's some uncertainty. Now, this is my prediction. If they do trade one of those guys, Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy, they're going to draft a tight end higher than expected, and they're going to run more 2 tight end sets than we think.
This is a great tight end class, guys.
Yep.
That is a very interesting prediction. I like that. That would make sense. It would be adding a familiar wrinkle into Sean Payton's offense and repertoire. Yep. You would have to think that it would be complementary with Russell Wilson and a pocket that's going to be on the move. You don't need to bomb every pass. You just need to get first downs. I like that a lot. I mean, tight end, maybe a dark horse position right now, but that could change in the future. My guy, Keith Brugman, coming in. He's excited about the NFL draft. We were talking about this a little earlier. He's asking a good question, and I wanted to throw this up there in Broncos country. Let us know what you think in the chat. If you had to put money on one of these, which one would it be? 1, we trade up. 2, we trade down. Or 3, we stay put. Thomas, you are not playing with house money. You're playing with the mortgage. Someone's got a gun to your head, and they're saying you have to tell me what you're going to do with your mortgage and the Broncos. What do you say?
This is what I have been saying. If they get the guy they want at 67, they're trading down for more picks. If they select 67 and it's somebody that we're like, whoa, yeah, that was a good pick, they're gonna get on the phone and see if they can collect more. They're gonna trade 68.
Makes total sense, but I'm not going to let you out of it. Keith's not going to let you out of it. Don't try to, be smarter than all of us here. I'm talking pre-67.
All right.
Do you think the Broncos sit there? Do you think they bump up, or do you think they move back and pull a George Payton?
I think they stay put at 67. If I had to bet, I say they stay put at 67. Okay. If we're not talking about trading a player, right, to get up into the draft, second or first round, I'm talking about packaging picks that they have in this draft. To move up, they're not going to do that. They're going to stay put at 67, and then from there you'll see some moves.
Oh, Thomas, you didn't make the mortgage, bud. But don't worry, I did. You can come stay at my house. Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos will be moving up in this NFL draft. You will not be waiting until Saturday, round 3, pick number 67, to find out where your Denver Broncos are doing. I think that the Broncos are going to move up to the late second. They identify tons of talent, right? In the first 2 rounds, there's one guy, at least one guy, that Sean Payton can't say no to, and is going to be in the second round. Hopefully he's an offensive center, maybe an offensive tackle. I don't see offensive tackles ever falling, really. I mean, talk about a position that you need. But I think the Denver Broncos, drama just got here with Sean Payton. It's good drama. It's going to be draft day drama where the Denver Broncos and Broncos Country can get really excited about their new second rounder. It's not going to be a Nick Bonito.
Yeah. I love this Phil McLaughlin asking this question, right? Phil, you're the man, because I actually had this exact scenario in my mock draft, analytics mock draft that I did. What do you guys think about trading 68 and 139 for 85 and a third and a fourth in 2024? I said yes all day long. And the reason why I say that, you get an extra third. You trade back. You get who you want at 67. You trade back still in the third, and you get 2 extra picks, so that now they have a multitude of picks in 2024 that they can package up, and they can get it back into the second round at least, or they can make some moves to go after who they want. Because this was an uncertain draft, but if you get 8, 9, 10 picks, you can package those up and make a deal. So I would take that all day. And the reason why I say that is because you add an increase of probability of picking an impact player with that trade, 32% more probability in that. And to take a starting player, same type of thing. So, and then you also have a slight chance of getting 2, right? So that's why I would do that all day long.
Oh man, not me. I think you need as much help as you can get right now. And the positions of need we haven't even talked about. I mean, I still see linebacker as a position of need. I still see safety as a position of need. I love J.L. Skinner from Boise State if he falls there. Had a great Senior Bowl performance. Absolutely loved him. I don't know if a guy like Noah Sewell would be within striking distance in the second or third, depending on how things go. I tend to overvalue linebackers, so he's probably going to be in the third. I don't see like a Jack Campbell or someone like that being available or within striking distance. If the Broncos really wanted to put all their eggs into that sort of basket, they would have to trade those 2 threes and a wide receiver to move up to get a guy like him. To me, he's a natural fit in Pittsburgh or Seattle, a team like that. It's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough. We're going to find out. There's so many needs, and there's not a lot of rumblings going on. I mean, they're working in silence over there. So that leaves us to our own creative devices, which is MHI speculating on the NFL draft, and Sue Gibson coming in again. She's coming in hot, fast, and furious, excited, ready for the Broncos NFL draft. $9.99 super. Thank you so much, Sue. We really appreciate you. PFF says the Broncos are looking at quarterback Aiden O'Connell. His stats are less than impressive. What say you? I believe this is the Purdue kid.
Well, thank you, Sue, for the super chat. We really obviously appreciate you and your support, and we appreciate your questions, right? Aiden O'Connell, I don't know, man. Like I said earlier, you're taking a late round quarterback just for prospecting purposes, when you have other needs and you only have a few picks, it's tough for me to say that. Yeah, I don't know. He's ranked pretty low. I don't know. He might be selected in the draft. He could be an undrafted free agent. That might be why they're looking at him, type of thing. I don't know where he ranks on like big boards and stuff, but I think it's pretty low. He might be one of those. Hey, we're talking to him because if you don't get drafted, we want you to come in as an undrafted rookie.
Hey, that's a theory a lot of buddies of mine have in the scouting community about certain teams, and the Broncos is one of them, saying that, look, they've made a lot of connections during this draft process of who they've hosted in on visits in hopes of gaining relationships if some of these guys go undrafted, that they ultimately pick Denver. And Broncos Country knows the story all too well about Philip Lindsay. There's a Philip Lindsay story up right now by Chad Johnson on milehighhuddle.com, and apparently Phil's saying, I would love to come back to Denver. I think Phil's playing in the XFL. But we all know the Philip Lindsay story about mom convincing him, choose Denver, don't choose Baltimore. That could be the same sort of situation here, where at least there have been connections made before the draft, and maybe you get a undrafted free agent. I don't know about the Purdue quarterback, Aiden O'Connell, Sue. I'm not a big fan, to be honest. I love his little mustache and the mullet and all that stuff, but he's not extremely mobile. This is a game now where quarterbacks have to be mobile. It's the pure pocket quarterback does not exist anymore. Just like, the old school Al Wilson smoke dog middle linebacker does not exist anymore. It's out, it's not current, and it's not progressive. Undrafted free agent that I like a lot, a guy like Chase Bryce out of Appalachian State. He's a guy I saw down at the Shrine Bowl in Las Vegas. I like him a lot. He's going to fly under the radar. He's played a lot of football. Maybe a Brock Purdy type situation, right, where you get a bell of the ball at one of these all-star games and he falls really, really late. Divine Breaks coming in here with a $10 super. Thank you so much, Divine. We appreciate you joining MHI, saying dream scenario. What is your dream scenario on what the Broncos will do and what will have the biggest impact?
Yeah, my dream scenario, which sounds crazy, but I am wearing, Tom Nalen created sweatshirt. They get a center that comes in day one and takes over the starting job and becomes a great center. That's because that's your biggest, in my mind, is your biggest hole on this roster right now. You spend all this money to fill up your offensive line and you still have a hole in the middle. I wanted Cushenberry to pan out. I liked him coming out of college. He hasn't. That's a hole. If you fix that hole, you're going to have a much better offense, and you're going to have a center that can stay with you for the next 10 years. That's my dream scenario. It's not a great one, but it's not fascinating, but that's the biggest hole.
Yeah, I've got a couple. One of them, offensive tackle DeJuan Jones out of Ohio State. I really like this guy. I like his size. Not the best feet in the world, but he could certainly get to where he wants to go. They call him Baby Thanos. I think you could trade up and get him in the middle of the second round. Maybe you look at a team that needs a wide receiver. Maybe you look at a team that's trying to rebuild. I don't know if the Tennessee Titans would be interested in something like that. Maybe early in the second round, LA Rams, Indianapolis Colts. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with the quarterback position. If they go quarterback, you'd have to think they'd want to supplement more at the wide receiver position as well. Now, I like offensive tackle a lot, so much that I'm going to also give you another guy, Cody Mauch, or I've been calling him Cody Mock, saying his last name wrong the entire draft class here. But this guy's an absolute dog. He was a quarterback in high school, converted from tight end to offensive line. He was the belle of the ball in the trenches at the Senior Bowl in Mobile earlier this year. A guy that kind of had a Quinn Minor story, if you will. Very much so athletic like Quinn, different positions, different ways, same mindset. I would love to see this guy here. Why? Folks, Garrett Bowles has had injury history since he got to the Denver Broncos, and he's an aging cat. You've also heard some smoke and some rumblings. Would Garrett Bowles be on the trading block? It's hard when guys are coming off of injury for me to get on that boat if you're an interested team wanting to know how Garrett Bowles will pan out. Offensive tackle, the left tackle. We've got to have depth there. Do not sleep on the left tackle position in this NFL draft.
And I'll agree with you. I think going into the season with Prince, and I lost his name, offensive tackle, he's Isaiah Prince. He, he's been around for 5 years, but he's only played for a couple, right? He's played very sparingly. That's going to be your swing tackle going into the season with a bunch of inexperienced stuff. So I'm with you.
Right.
You. The left tackle, offensive tackle position needs to be addressed soon. I don't think it's the biggest weakness, but you need some depth with someone who's going to step in a year or two, maybe even next year, in order to take over that left tackle position. I don't know if it's DeJuan Jones. I don't know if being that size, that heavy, kind of, it worries me, because when I look at all the the really big, heavy players, they don't last very long in the NFL. The weight just kind of wears them out. But Cody Mauch or Moch or whatever, however you pronounce it,
North Dakota State.
Yeah, I would love to have him fall into their lap at 67. That'd be great.
Well, and he can play guard. He was taking
Yep.
bizarre snaps at center. I mean, he was playing. Scott and I were there. He was playing all 5 positions, and he did some reps better at different spots, but it was still pretty impressive to see kind of a plug and play mentality. We talk about it for some of our favorite offensive linemen. We were talking about Ben Hamilton earlier. The guy could play all over the offensive line, and you need guys in a pinch that have some of that versatility. Mark from Georgia coming in saying, "How do you guys feel about a Jake Haener from Fresno State?" That's okay to me. I'm a little more curious about Max Dugan or Duggan, however you pronounce his name, but I would definitely be curious about this cat. He's the size thing is kind of an issue, but if you're Sean Payton, that doesn't matter, right? 5'11", 6 foot, whatever those specs are, kind of similar to Russell Wilson. I don't know. Hayner's okay for me, but he doesn't move the needle. I'm definitely more curious about that TCU Horned Frog and Dugan.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, for coming in. It's good to see you on the show. Appreciate the question here. I don't know that much about Jake from Fresno State, really, to tell you the truth. I know he's a little bit smaller. If you're going to take a risk at somebody that, kind of later, a quarterback later in the draft, I would even wait later. I'd take a risk on a small guy like Dorian Thompson Robinson or something like that.
UCLA.
So, yeah, from UCLA, if he's there, just you get a little bit more an element of, a lot of mobility from him, something like that. Someone who could step in and do something, right away if necessary with his legs. If Russell Wilson got hurt or something like that. I know Stidham's the backup, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know enough about him. So yeah, I apologize, but he's probably going to be there available at one of their picks. Again, I just want to say I don't want to take a pick, kind of that luxury pick of a, prospect that you build at quarterback when you only have 5 picks for the entire draft.
He'll get drafted for sure. Mark's on to something there. I mean, he's going to get a shot. He's going to get drafted. It'll be interesting to see. We appreciate the love, Mark. Thank you so much, man, for tuning in to MHI with Thomas Hall and yours truly. We're on every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Mountain. Get ready for nonstop NFL draft coverage starting tomorrow night. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to get into it. Yours truly will be writing up some of those articles over at milehighhuddle.com. In fact, every article for every draft pick. Hendon Hooker has also been connected to the Denver Broncos, right? In some drafts, you've seen Hendon Hooker fall maybe to the 3rd round. I say fall because initially a lot of hype, right? The injury, wondering what's going on, go down a little, go back up. That'd be interesting, right? You've been looking at Hendon Hooker as well. Again, I think the term that you've used is luxury, and I would completely agree with that. That's a luxury pick. Broncos Country, I'm right there with you. I don't know why Jarrett Stidham's here. I don't. It would be one of the first questions I asked Sean. Talk to me about Jarrett Stidham. What qualities do you see in Jarrett Stidham that make him a viable backup or potential starter for the Denver Broncos? I would love to hear his answer to that because I don't see it. Then again, I'm not an NFL coach, so it does make me curious about what the Broncos are looking at. I would expect the quarterback to at least get signed as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah. Well, I think they liked him coming out of college, just like I said about Cushenberry, right? They think they can make something of him, even though they've seen him play. They think their ability to change what he does and put him in the right positions to be a good quarterback. Maybe that's what they think. I don't know. It was a surprise. It wasn't just a surprise that they went out and got him right away, but they paid him quite a bit to get here, right, into Denver. So
that's what's up.
That to me tells me they have more plans for him than just someone to fill up space as a backup quarterback. But yeah, they're going to have to bring in more. They're going to have to bring in somebody else, probably undrafted. But, like you said, you never know. If someone falls to them, they may take a shot. They don't care. They're going to take their pick if they like them. They're not going to worry about and from my perspective, the Broncos team has holes, but a lot of their holes is depth. In my mind, rotational depth along the defensive line. Like you said, safety's pretty thin. That's where they need it. That's where they need to take to take a quarterback when you need to bring that depth in those later rounds, which is usually where you find your depth players, is a luxury. It is a luxury. So I don't know. It's going to be a tough one for me for that with 5 picks.
As Gary Kubiak used to say, we're fixing to find out. We're fixing to find out really, really soon. The NFL draft round 1 kicks off tomorrow. Wrapping up some draft coverage, favorite draft day picks by your Denver Broncos. One of my favorites, Tom, as we start to close our last little segment out here on the show, Ryan Clady. I mean, an absolute dog out of Boise State, pick number 12 overall. Started his rookie year, right? At left tackle and
gave
just
up a half a sack.
a half a sack.
His
This is a
rookie year
guy
gave
that
up a half a sack. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a guy, like whenever I talk to Big O, he's always talking about Clady. He was a rookie when Clady was still on the team and just talks about how he wanted to be Ryan Clady. I mean, that young guys were being drafted, looking up at Ryan Clady saying, I want to be that guy as the Denver Bronco. One of my favorites. Also, running back Clinton Portis out of the U. Man, that was so much fun to see Clinton Portis in a Mike Shanahan system. Who would have thought Clinton Portis being drafted to the Denver Broncos would get us Pro Football Hall of Fame cornerback champ Bailey. I mean, that is pretty crazy. A twist of fate, if you will. Win for both teams, but the Broncos got the upper hand.
Not only did they get Champ Bailey, they got a second rounder, which turned into Tatum Bell, who also became a 1,000-yard rusher for the Broncos. So they actually kicked butt on that trade. I will say this: if Clinton Portis had stayed with Mike Shanahan in that offense, he's a Hall of Famer.
Ooh, yeah, that's a bold statement. That's a really bold statement. But man, I'm thinking back, and even when I wrote Clinton Portis down, man, that was so much fun to see number 2-6. He pounded the rock in a very familiar, new generational way. I mean, there were like old school running back tendencies that he had, but a new face of athleticism that we quite hadn't seen at that running back position coming from the U and that awesome stacked team and some of the mystique and the bad boy-ness of it, if you will, at a running back position was really, really cool. I love those two picks. Do you have any favorites kind of on the way out here? I mean, look, we all loved the Hall of Famers and stuff, but how about some modern favorites like Al Wilson, Smoke Dog Al Wilson, one of my favorite players of all time.
Yeah, no, I loved the Clady pick when it happened. I've talked about that before. I loved it. But yeah, amazing. I mean, you think about all these greats that you look back on, but here's one that nobody talks about. They don't talk about him at all. Incredibly underrated player, also a 12th rounder. Tyrone Braxton, one of my favorite picks. He doesn't get a lot of love. Came in as a cornerback, switched to safety. Key in those Super Bowl victories, really key player. Small safety in a long, and they probably don't talk about it because Broncos have a long line of safeties who have been amazing. But Tyrone Braxton, underrated player, championship player. I think he had 3 championships at North Dakota State University, then came and won 2 more with the Broncos. I love Tyrone Braxton. Another late rounder that became a gem.
Speaking of love, we love Carol Allen giving us some love back. And Tom and Luke, 2 of my favorites on MHH. Thank you guys. We appreciate that. A lot of passion, a lot of fun. We try to chalk it up with you guys and get as much content out of you guys as you provide. I mean, your opinion matters. This is a fan-based publication. Y'all run the show. We just try to steer and help where we can. A lot of fun stuff coming out for MHH here in the draft. And let's get to Jeremy real quick. Braxton, severely underrated player. And Jeremy, Tom, you guys got me smiling. I wouldn't have thought about Tyrone Braxton. That would have completely gone by the wayside. But when you go back and you watch the 97 and 98 America's game, Braxton is all over the field. I mean, he is all over the camera. He was not only a supporting member, he was a foundation.
Yeah, the amazing thing about Braxton, right? He was a ball hawk that nobody really talks about, right? He led the league in when he moved to safety, he ended up leading the league in interceptions with 9 in 96. He was
no way.
What's that?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was and he left for a year, went to Miami and came back. So he spent 1 year in Miami, but the rest of his career has been in Denver. But when you think about these great safeties, it doesn't come to your mind because you think about Dennis Smith, you think about Steve Atwater, you think about John Lynch coming over, you think about Bill Thompson, these great
Dawkins.
Safeties. But yeah, Braxton was a opportunistic player. So yeah, I love Tyrone Braxton. He was fun to watch. He had a different face mask than you would consider a safety would wear and whatnot. But yeah, I like him a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Speaking of fun, our guy Mike Rinquillo always having so much fun and giving us support, and we want to give it right back. Thank you, Michael. Saying great show tonight on MHI, and your kindness is overwhelming, Michael. Thank you for all that you do for us. And I'm seeing some other ones. Our guy Todd in here, Mike Anderson, man.
Yes.
Mike Anderson was awesome, dude. Mike Anderson, man, that mile high salute and getting that going, kind of passing that torch from TD over to a man of the people and Mike Anderson. And I remember being a little boy and on one of my cards, you know, when you're a little kid and they do little league cards, even for Pee Wee football, they asked who your favorite player was that year. And it was Mike Anderson. I mean, what a rich history the Broncos have had at the running back position. Stay tuned. That's a position we haven't talked about either, just kind of on the way out. George Payton, Sean Payton, obviously alluding to interest at the running back position this last week during the virtual press conference.
Yeah, I think it's a need, really. I mean, not a huge need, obviously. I love Javonte Williams. I've talked about this before. He has a very low chance of being his old self coming back from that devastating injury. I like Perrine. You know, he's going to be fun. They need to bring somebody in that I would say is kind of a compliment to him. I know they brought in some others, right? They have a few kind of fringe players that they've brought in, Tony Jones Jr. and stuff like that. But, you know, the Devin Akane, or I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. He's you know, fast, kind of one of those who can be a good change of pace. He might be around there that they can take him in the fourth round. I would be happy with that.
GLP coming in with a $4.99 super saying, just checking in to give kudos to the pod. Great fun and go Broncos. Thank you so much, Gary. You're a huge active member of this community and this show. Been with us since the beginning. Yeah, I like the running backs too. Keep your eye on Tank Bigsby. Know the Broncos really, really like him. I like Rashawn Johnson out of Texas. Doesn't get a lot of love, of course, playing second fiddle to Bijan, who's going to be drafted very early, I think. There are also other guys. We talked about Utah's Tavion Thomas quite a bit. You can find running backs in this draft, and it's always interesting to see what other teams do, like San Francisco, that rely on the running back position and seem to be a running back factory. You got to think that Sean Payton, he loves the running back position. It ultimately supports his offense. Guys, this is going to be a wrap for MHI on the final podcast before the NFL draft eve. It's been a blast. Thomas is going to be back at it with draft coverage on these very airwaves. Yours truly is going to be hard at work, writing, typing, and putting articles out over at milehighhuddle.com. It's going to be a huge team effort. So many guys have been grinding and working and traveling and watching film and writing and everything else, all for this moment to bring you the best draft coverage in all of Broncos country.
Yeah, thank you for being here tonight. Yeah, I'll be on Friday morning, Legends of Mile High. We're going to be talking about, then again, Orange and Blue View right after the draft to talk about, talk about wrapping it all up in a nice little bow. I'm excited, man. This is going to be fun. Going to hopefully jump on to some of the War Room stuff. Yeah, it'll be great. It's fun. The draft is always fun for me. It always has been since I was a kid. I loved the draft, and it's only gotten better. And I've gotten more involved in many different ways. So Lyle Alzado, yes.
Lyle, one of my guys, right? I mean, box Muhammad Ali out there at the old stadium. You can't forget that. Rest in peace. Broncos country, be good to each other. Have a lot of fun. You deserve this NFL draft. You've waited for it long enough. And stay tuned over at Mile High Huddle. .com. You can get it Twitter at Mile High Huddle. If you want to reach out to Thomas directly, that's at Thomas Hall NFL. Yours truly at Luke Patterson LP. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you here tomorrow night. Broncos country, this is the way.
This is the way.